Welcome to another episode of Light the Fuse, and this is the episode we've been building towards all year. This is our initial Fallout reactions. This is Drew Taylor, joined once again by Charles Hood.
Hello.
And Charles, you're in Oregon, and you just got out of the movie, correct?
Yes, I'm in Portland, about to go into production on a show, and I got the 7 p.m. Thursday night IMAX tickets. Saw it on the biggest screen in the state of Oregon.
I saw it a couple of weeks ago, so my first question is really, how was that first man footage?
Oh, so you didn't see the first man footage?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
So this is the Man on the Moon movie that Ryan Gosling is doing with...
Damien Chazelle?
Yes, Damien Chazelle, who I love Whiplash so much. It's interesting. I feel like they picked the wrong clip. It's a really interesting... I don't know how much you want me to spoil it, because we're obviously this whole episode is spoiler-free for Fallout.
Right.
So should I stay spoiler-free for the First Man clip? The approach to the scene for First Man is... It's very isolated, and it's not really a showcase of a big moment.
Okay.
Even though it is a big moment in the movie, clearly, but it stays really isolated with the characters. And so I kind of feel like they picked the wrong moment. The thing that got me excited was that at the end of the clip, at the end of the 5 minutes, they showed clips of the other parts of the movie.
Right.
And that stuff was really thrilling. To me, I was watching it, and I was kind of thinking, well, we don't know these characters. In the context of the movie, I think it's probably going to be a great scene because it's a really cool approach. But to show off a clip for IMAX, I kind of feel like it was a mistake.
Okay.
But maybe that's a horrible thing to say, and I feel bad saying it now.
All right, well, that's our episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
No, I think it's going to be a really cool movie, and I think it's actually going to be a really cool sequence, but watching it out of context, which I never like, when they post scenes online of,
right.
Oh, watch a scene from a movie that's coming up soon. I never watch those because I feel like they're terrible to watch out of context.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the same as, when they showed like the intro to Dark Knight Rises, right? In front of Ghost Protocol, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of like that, but that was the best sequence in Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
And it's a really big, it's like, it's another one of Nolan's homages to the James Bond series, because that was the intro to License to Kill. It's the same sequence almost, but he did it bigger in IMAX.
Yeah, and it was an introductory scene, so you didn't need a lot of context and, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Well, we shared my tweet from when I saw Mission Impossible a few weeks ago, so everyone knows I loved it. Charles, what did you think?
I mean, I just got out within the hour, and of course I loved it. I thought it was freaking great.
Yeah.
I've got to digest it a little bit and think about, but I mean, it could be the best.
Yeah.
I mean, it sort of takes elements of all of the other movies.
Yes.
And I saw some people comment that it takes elements of 1, 3, 4, and 5, but not 2. I would argue against that and say it also incorporates 2 in a really big way.
I agree with that as well. We're not going to say how.
I won't say how, no, but it's crucial how it goes into the 2 reference. And it's like,
yeah.
Fuck yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
I shouldn't swear. I think our
we have an explicit thing on our iTunes just so we can swear.
Oh, good. So yes.
For Rogue. Yeah, so yes.
Fuck yeah.
Yes. I was surprised by how emotional it was. It really kind of got me.
It got me emotional.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that we have both sort of fought against the kind of emotional elements of the series in our own ways.
Yes. I've always, as I've said over and over again, I don't like the personal life stuff. But this, to me, was, again, like Ghost Protocol, I thought did a good job of just right enough. The first movie did just enough, too, with the parents use it as a plot device. But this, even though it could have been too much, it really didn't feel like it was too much. I actually thought it was great.
Right. Now, we are going to avoid spoilers in this episode, but we are going to come back in a couple of weeks and do like a huge episode about everything after you and I have both seen it a couple of times. And I hope that we get to see it together at some point, too. But new elements in this one. We've got a lot of new cast members. What did you think of Henry Cavill and Vanessa Kirby? I think are the two standouts.
Yes. We have to avoid spoilers, so I can't say a lot of why, but I do love Vanessa Kirby's character a lot.
Right.
A lot.
Yeah, I thought she added a lot of kind of like sex appeal and danger and mystery. And you know what? The same could be said for Henry Cavill's character, too.
I mean, I've been, on Twitter a lot for the last few weeks, just looking at Mission Impossible stuff, and there are a lot of ladies out there and men who are super into Henry Cavill in this movie.
I mean, it's weird.
I can understand why.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to see. I think this is maybe the best use of him and his physicality in any movie, and it's so weird because he's Superman, and yet this, I felt more than any of those movies, how big he is, how strong he is.
Yes, you feel his physicality for sure.
And he's funny, and he's, a little bit of a prick, and I just thought he was so great. I thought he was a great character.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we really can't talk a lot about these new characters, but I thought they were great. I thought they added a lot to the kind of milieu of the Mission Impossible franchise. We talked last week, which hasn't aired yet, but it'll be up soon, about how this is kind of like a 2-part episode. Did you kind of agree with that hypothesis?
Yeah, so in our upcoming, in a few weeks, there's an episode that we recorded already that is about the old show, and there's a 2-part episode, and in that you talk about how this feels like Rogue Nation and Fallout feel almost like a 2-part episode of the old show. It's interesting. I think... Yeah, I feel that, but it's a culmination of all the movies. Yeah. Which is why I think right now you could make an argument as that it's the best one. Although it's hard because the first one I hold it's such a place in my heart for the first one that it's hard to, I don't know. I mean, I love them all. In particular, I love 1, 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, so much.
I think that what's good about this one is to me it was such a full meal that I was like, you know what? If that's the last one, I don't want it to be the last one, but if it is, I'm fine with that. Yeah. It gave you everything
kind of a capper
you needed. Yeah.
That if they walked away now, you'd be like, that's a perfect series. I mean, even with its flaws of the insanity of 2 and some other flaws in 3, and also just to say there are people out there who find 2 to be their favorite or 3 to be their favorite. So, it's the best franchise.
Yeah, it's really amazing. We have new department heads. What did you think of Robin Hardy's cinematography?
Is it Rob Hardy?
Is it Rob? Yeah, Rob Hardy, right?
Yeah, I think it's Rob Hardy. Yeah, he did Ex Machina, right?
Yep, and Annihilation. Yep.
I thought the cinematography was fantastic. Yep. The IMAX was really cool. I didn't notice the change into IMAX, and there's only 2 IMAX sequences, correct?
Well, okay, I don't think this is a spoiler, but before the Halo jump sequence, which has been widely publicized and is on every poster, as he's walking to the edge of the kind of like,
it goes
surface. It goes up. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Well, so I'm going to, we're doing this is just our initial reaction, and we don't want to get into spoilers. So in 3 weeks will be our big Fallout episode. So I'm going back to see it again in a few days, and I'm going to take diligent notes, and I am going to look for that moment. I remember now that we're staying spoiler free because there is something really cool about that moment. Yeah. And I was so caught up in it that I didn't even notice the screen changing into IMAX. That's just so cool.
Yeah.
We talk about, we haven't released it yet, but our Ghost Protocol episode, which will be out next week, we talk about the transition into IMAX in that movie and how the screen sort of like rises almost like a curtain going up. Yes. And this one, I guess, has that too, and I just didn't notice because I was so caught up in the moment, which is a good thing.
And I want to talk. We'll talk about that sequence. I think that sequence owes a lot to Ghost Protocol, and we'll talk about why in that episode. What did you think of Lauren Balfe's music, who is going to be on the show? So be nice, Charles. He's going to be on the show. What did you think of his score?
So Lauren Balfe, we talked a little bit on Twitter with him. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right or if you are.
Who knows?
We'll have to get clarification from him. But he did an amazing score. It's definitely a different approach, and I thought it was awesome. I mean,
it's awesome. It's such an awesome score.
Zimmer did the second movie, but he kind of out-Zimmered Zimmer. Yeah. And it fits this tone, because this movie, I think, a tonal sort of comparison. It still has a lot of great comedy in it, too, but not as much as the other ones, I think. At least not as much as the last couple. But the tone is, I think, similar to The Dark Knight, kind of.
Okay.
And this score, I think, is reminiscent of The Dark Knight. It's like Mission Impossible goes into the world of Zimmer's Dark Knight score.
Right.
Does that feel accurate on some level?
Yeah, to me, I thought the comparison was maybe like there's a lot of piano and a lot of synth in the score, which I loved.
Oh, there's a great piano.
Yeah,
cue
and
that is really cool and kind of feels like almost like a 70s conspiracy thriller.
Yes, exactly. That was the connection I was making.
There's a little melody to it that's awesome.
Yeah, and he uses it again with synth, and it's awesome. And I just thought it was so propulsive, and like everything else in the movie, it just sucks you into the suspense and the action so beautifully.
He also does some of the best versions of the plot. We've talked a lot on this show about the plot, the secondary theme that Lalo Schifrin wrote for the old show. And Lauren did a couple of different versions of the plot in some big scenes that are really cool.
Yeah.
I was geeking out watching the movie. There's so many moments that I just wanted. I wish we could have seen this together, Drew.
I know.
Because I was like, I saw it with a couple of friends who are making the show. My cinematographer and the creator of the show. I saw it with the two of them, and I was just the biggest nerd, like geeking out, and and every time one of the references to the earlier movies came up, I had to explain it to both of them.
Oh man. We should hold like little seminars before screenings across this great nation. Yeah, I mean, there were moments when I was definitely like hooting, like we were with Ghost Protocol. I was like pumping my fist, and I mean, it's just an unbelievable movie. I just think it's just so full of life and color, and I loved it. I just thought everything about it was so great. And speaking of color, what do you think of the title sequence?
The title sequence I thought was great.
Isn't it so cool?
I was on cloud 9 from the sequence that happened immediately preceding the titles.
Yes, I knew you would be.
That I didn't even get to enjoy the titles as much as I would have because I was just freaking out about how much I loved the sequence that led into the title sequence.
Yeah.
And I had to explain something to the guy sitting next to me.
So you couldn't really engage. Well,
so I didn't get to it, but then I was like, oh my god, I have to pay attention. And they had kind of I mean, we'll get into it, more of the details next time. But I thought that the title sequence was really great. And I thought Lauren's music was really great.
Yeah, it's an awesome title sequence. It's one of the best, I think. And I loved the motif that went through it, which we will talk about later. But I just thought emotionally it was maybe the most interesting. Psychologically, I thought it was maybe the most interesting because there is an element that is sort of not explicitly stated, but you feel like Ethan Hunt might be kind of compulsively drawn to saving the world. That this is something that is a kind of pathology that he's dealing with.
I feel like there were themes that were brought up in this that were brought up in a couple of the earlier movies. Mm-hmm. I think in 3 and even 4 and in 5, and this one did it and kind of did it better than all of those.
Yes, I agree.
And it's a really interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people when they look at the series, they kind of think it's 3, 4, 5, 6 are really connected, and 1 and 2 are kind of almost their own thing. But this movie ties them all together.
I agree.
And I think, but there are a lot of the themes that are explored in 3, 4, and 5 are all in this, and they are done even better. It feels like. Yeah,
I mean, it's just rare to have an action movie that also features some of the best character work of the year, and also has all of this subtext and these psychological and emotional implications, and it's just amazing. I think that what Christopher McQuarrie did with this movie is just incredible. It's just jaw-dropping that he was able to pull this all together.
And I think we can talk about, without getting into spoilers, one of the big problems that we've talked about that the series has a lot of the time is that midpoint sequence is always such a peak that the climax suffers or feels like it's just not as climactic.
Yes.
And you can tell that there was a concerted effort. Maybe they were listening to the show, but
I think they were listening to the show.
They were really big fans of the podcast.
Yeah.
And they whipped together this big climax.
Yeah. I'm sure it was like an overnight. Yeah.
But the third act is kind of what we've talked about, or at least what I was saying in some of the earlier episodes about, I wish that the climax could be like, make it like a mission with the whole team. And they did it to a certain extent, I think, in Ghost Protocol. But this did it to the nth degree. I mean, it's just huge.
It's huge, but it's also the most emotionally grounded.
Emotional, yeah. You care. You're worried for the characters, and
yes,
and the suspense is there. Like I talk about in 2 how I'm so bugged by the ticking clock. They only once, like they set the clock, and I think it's 20 hours or something that this disease is going to kill Thandie Newton.
Well, and all of Australia.
And then they never once give you another time update. So like you don't even get to, other than Tom Cruise saying like we're running out of time. But this one, the suspense is done. I mean, that ticking clock is there and you feel it, and I felt it in the audience too. Everybody was whew.
Yeah. Oh, we can breathe again? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. The climax is really something else. And I think we both obviously have been reading all of these articles about the production of the movie, which we will get into in a later episode, even after our deep dive. But it seems like they took those 8 weeks or whatever that Cruise was hurt, and they really honed in on what the movie was. They got the edit to a really good place. And I think that you feel that, like, even though this is the longest mission by, I don't know, 20 minutes or something?
Yeah, I think so. This movie is 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, you don't look at your watch, but does not stop to catch its breath once. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing what they did, and I'm just so impressed with everything. I mean, every dollar is on the screen, and you can tell the actors are all having a great time. Did you know that Rebecca Ferguson was like 8 months pregnant while she shot this as well?
I read about that at one point. Yeah, that's crazy. I also wanted to quickly say, because you brought up the title sequence, and I think it was a really great title sequence, there's another, just like Rogue Nation, there's another main on end title sequence.
Which is also great.
At the end, it's another really cool sequence at the end that they do. So the last 2 have done that. And we always talk about the location title cards, which I'm sure everyone is really excited about. I think this one has the best location title card. There's one in particular that happens. I don't want to spoil it, but I will just say that there's one location title card where they go all out, and it's got to be, I'm sure, everything that you ever wanted, Drew.
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to say that. I wanted you to... Some of the things I was like, oh, Charles, you're going to love that title sequence. Did not talk about that. Yeah, it's like this movie is just like the ultimate. It's the ultimate Mission Impossible movie. It's just like everything that we like nitpick. It's like, oh, this happens and we've wanted this for 4 movies and here it is. And yeah, it's crazy.
There's a lot to talk about, especially I think it would get into too spoilery territory, but there are things that we talk about every week that we'll have to bring up in a future episode when we do the deep dive. Because there's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of running to count. There's a lot of, I mean, I think we can, without getting into spoilers, what do you think of his hair in this one?
It's short. It's
short. Two short cuts in a row. I think this is the only 2.
I don't know.
Right?
I was just watching a little bit of Rogue Nation earlier today. I'd say it's medium in Rogue Nation. It's short in this. It's
like a nice, like, kind of middle-aged cut, I felt like.
Yeah, I think 1, 3, and 6 are the shortest.
Right.
And maybe 1 is the shortest still?
Yeah. 1 is like a buzz cut, and I think he looks great in that. But.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. He looks great in all of them.
He does.
There are a lot of people, there are a lot of memes dedicated to his hair from the second one. People love that second one.
Yeah. I mean, it's a force of nature, the hair in the second one. I'm very partial to the kind of flow of the fourth hairstyle, because I thought, you know what, he can still party, but he's got a job to do, and I feel like both of those things are very well represented. I like it blowing in the Dubai breeze. But yeah, I thought this haircut was great. I think this might be my favorite Cruise performance of all of them.
That's interesting. I'd have to
maybe
think about
because
that.
of those psychological things that we're talking about.
I know we're kind of all over the place, but I'm just super excited. I want to go back to is Rob Hardy, right? Rob Hardy cinematography.
Yes.
It is the darkest one visually by far.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, the contrast in lighting is really apparent. It's very dark in some scenes, and in a way that I like. That's part of this one being such a darker movie. I think in general.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the characters are in shadow, or in like bright light, and sometimes it's not the characters that should be in shadow.
Yeah, I mean, there's some nice
sometimes
silhouettes at the beginning of the movie that I thought were beautiful.
Yeah, there's a scene in a kind of, I don't know what it is, an alleyway or something that's really dark, but has some of my favorite shots in the whole movie.
Also, I've been rewatching all the movies this week again because I love them so much, and I'm working on a new theory about the midpoint sequences.
Okay.
And I wanted to run this by you. So,
okay.
We complain a little bit about some of the midpoint sequences, the weaker ones. So Mission Impossible 2 is one of them.
Yes.
And I know the Mission Impossible 3, I think the midpoint sequence is more the Vatican, but there's also the whole Shanghai sequence that there's the whole off-camera thing that happens, where he does his whole heist off-camera, and the part that I hate where they talk about the cat, it's the prayer for the cat. So the first movie has the Langley sequence, and it's so iconic that they've been working on, I think they probably think about this, but they're sort of doing like a deconstruction of the big set piece. And when I watched MI2 recently, I realized, because I know this was a complaint you had for MI2, was that the sequence doesn't tell you all the things they're going to do ahead of time, right?
Yes.
So like usually when you do a heist, you point out all the things they're going to do ahead of time, and then when they get to do each thing, it all breaks down. But the way they were deconstructing that when I was watching it again, and maybe it doesn't work fully, but I see what they were going for, is they were showing this, like, basically Ethan Hunt doing this heist and pulling it all off, but they're cross-cutting between the heist and Sean Ambrose, the bad guy, talking about everything that Hunt's going to do.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. That does make it cooler.
Yeah, so that was their attempt, I think, at deconstructing that sequence, and I'm pulling out my notes about it because I wrote down a line of his. Ambrose says about Hunt, and it's just so great because it still goes to this day. It's true. He says, Hunt will no doubt engage in some aerobatic insanity. And he's just talking about all the ways that Hunt is going to go out of his way to not hurt anybody and pull off this mission. And then meanwhile, it's like the deconstruction is that Ambrose then comes in through the front door, kills everyone, and takes the thing that they're going for or whatever. So it was, I think, I think they've worked on deconstructing that midpoint sequence. And I think in the third one, when they did the Shanghai heist, it was another way of deconstructing the big sequence. Like they talk about right before they do it, Luther says this compared to this, Langley was a cakewalk.
Right.
And then they don't even show it to you. They show the big, crazy stunt of him jumping in and on top of the building, and then once he goes into the building, they never show you inside.
Yeah, you never see what the rabbit's foot is, or
again
anything.
Trying to deconstruct the big sequence.
Right.
And then I think this one, without getting into spoilers, also kind of deconstructs the sequence in the middle. They kind of do it, they deconstruct it, and then they do it. I don't want to spoil it, but you know what I mean? What I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that whole sequence was great.
But it also it deconstructs, but still adheres to those rules, right? Of we're gonna see what it is, but then it's gonna go completely differently.
But it's a really cool deconstruction of it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And I was like shocked when it happened, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. Okay.
Right. Yeah. It's really, there's a lot of surprises in this movie, despite how much the marketing has shown from every aspect of the movie. There are tons of surprises.
Can I bring up something? And by the way, also I want to say you pointed out that I didn't realize it on first watch, but that midpoint sequence, there's a big oneer in there, and I didn't even notice it because I was so caught up in the movie. But I'm gonna watch it again in the next few days, and I'm gonna look and watch. But it's a really cool thing that it's a oneer. I need to check that out.
Yeah.
But so I don't think it's a spoiler to say this. In fact, it might prepare people who are expecting something. I think there's a big action set piece that was cut out.
I know what you're talking about, and it doesn't seem like a set piece as much as a
portion of a set piece.
Beat.
I don't want to spoil it. So that's why I was just saying a set piece. But I was a little disappointed to not see it in the movie, and I'm sure it's going to make an amazing deleted scene. But it's Cruise in the helicopter heading towards a truck.
Yes.
That's not in the movie.
No. There's a couple of things in the trailer that aren't in the movie, but that's the biggest one for sure. But I was disappointed too, but then I was like, wait a minute, this movie's perfect. And that sequence, I would never change anything about that.
No,
the way
I
that
wouldn't at all. No, I think
together.
it's amazing. And I shouldn't judge a movie at all by what's in the trailer and what's not in the movie or whatever. But it did, when I was watching the movie and the last scene was happening, I kept thinking, are they going to put him back in a helicopter and is he going to run into a truck?
That'll be like on the Mission Impossible theme park ride. It'll be like a Star Tours type when you're in the helicopter, and that'll be in.
Is that okay? You think that's okay to include? That's not. Is it a
Yeah,
spoiler?
I think so.
I mean, it's almost a preparation for something that's not in there.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, the trailer showed way more than we could ever even say, I feel like.
Yeah.
Overall, what did you think about the action in this one? Choreography, staging, and all of that.
Or maybe even A plus.
Yeah, A plus. There's even like these little moments that we'll talk about that are part of larger sequences that are just beautiful and brilliant and say so much about the characters.
There were a couple of shots that were CGI that bummed me out a little bit, but not that much. I mean, like, it's still so practical and amazing. So much of the action is practical.
We have to understand that Tom Cruise does have sort of like mortal limits that he cannot do everything, and so there has to be little tweaks. But I thought for the most part, I just loved the way it was shot. I loved how much you could see of every sequence.
Yes, the geography is totally clear.
Yeah. I loved how long they were. I mean, there's
the pacing.
It seems like there's a sequence in the middle that's like two sequences back to back almost, like kind of chase sequences without saying what those are. But yeah, I mean, I just cannot believe how well this thing was put together. A lot of people online are saying it's the best action movie since Mad Max Fury Road, and I would say it's very hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I completely agree with them. I mean, this is, it has phenomenal action, but at the same time, still 100% a Mission Impossible movie.
Oh yeah.
They use the team so well.
Yes.
And every time the movie was going too far into action movie, and I would start to feel myself in my back of my brain say, oh, okay, is this just going to be a big action movie now? Then they'd bring the team in, and it would be in really clever, surprising ways, and I would just be like pumping my fist in excitement every time it happened.
Yeah. There's many moments that harken back to the TV show as well. And that's another reason why I think that this is kind of like the ultimate Mission Impossible movie, and it would be fine if they stopped after this. But judging by how much money it made tonight, it made over $5 million in previews alone tonight.
Great.
I don't think this will be the last one.
What is your hope? Do you want, to me, I'll say I think this is amazing. I don't think McQuarrie's going to be able to top this, and I think it's such a culmination of everything. I feel like they should pivot a little bit and bring in a new director and not rely so much on the story of the last few and just go, not clean slate, but like soft reboot. I hope they bring back, I don't want to say who comes back and who doesn't, because I don't want to get into spoilers, but I do hope they bring back characters. But
yeah,
do
for
like,
sure.
Take it in a slightly new direction. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think what's kind of sucks right now is like I feel like we have the best group of characters together now between Ilsa and the Vanessa Kirby character and all these new characters that it kind of sucks to like get rid of them. But at the same time, I would love to see them maybe go smaller, go more in the like the first Mission Impossible De Palma route, and then they can start building back up again after that. But I think you're right that it needs to be a soft reboot. Maybe Cruise is in a different role in the team, but yeah, because it's just you're never going to be able to top this. It's crazy how good it is. But I think that's actually a good place to end this episode on, and that to let everyone know that we will come back in a few weeks with a deep dive, all of our notes.
Well, I want to say, so next week we cover Ghost Protocol, and the week after that we do Rogue Nation, and then the week after that we will come back and do our deep dive into Fallout. And just so you know, Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, those versions of ourselves recorded it before seeing Fallout. So there will be no comparisons to Fallout or anything, and that will all come the following week when we come back to Fallout.
Yes, we promise to go into where this fits in the franchise and everything that we picked up on the subsequent viewings that Charles and I will both be doing this weekend. So
yes,
I'm so excited for that.
And then beyond that too, we'll be doing we've got an Unmade Missions episode that we already recorded that I'm really excited about, where we talk about all the movies that never got made. We have an episode on spoofs. We're going to end up doing big making of episodes of each movie. There are countless other topics, more episodes about the old TV show. It's going to go on and on.
Yeah, so
whether
thank
you like it or not.
Yeah, if you're coming in for this is your first episode, we have so much more. Listen to the old ones. Thank you so much for listening. And for Charles, this is Drew, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the original Mission Impossible television show, all 7 seasons are currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.